Utilize News.
Hello and welcome to yet another very exciting edition of your favorite online TV series Youth Weekly on UTV Africa, the program that brings you highlights of the events that made the headlines over the last week in the language and perspective of young people. My name is Faith Thomas.
And I am Helda Apollos. You're welcome. Here are some of the issues that made the headlines in the news last week. Fuel scarcity. NNPC can only supply 50% of Nigeria's need. IPMAN.
Refineries must be privatized, says Alison Madueke.
My bone of contention with Obasanjo is my 500 million naira. Orji Uzokalo.
Pension thieves cashed 400 checks in a day. Witness.
Absence of George stalls hearing in Sanusi suit against Nigerian government.
Oil ministers, bankers roll in Sanusi's oyster.
Boko Haram terrorists beg soldiers for mercy.
INEC develops guidelines to deepen political processes, Commissioner.
In sports, Magical Messi conjures up his best performance in a year.
Ex-British Foreign Secretary Straw says opposition good for Nigeria. These were some of the issues that made the headlines over the last week. Please join us in a moment as we take on some of these issues. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Youth Weekly, Utilize News.
We are part of social media.
We bring you youth perspective on issues. Youths have a voice.
We have the stories to tell.
You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is still Youth Weekly on UTV Africa. On this segment of the program, we take on some of the key issues in the headlines last week. And I have none other than Faith Thomas in the studio to discuss these issues with me. Faith, it's interesting to see that the nation is actually alive with a lot of activities.
Yeah, so many things
making the
have been
headlines.
happening. In
Sure.
fact, today we have a very, very interesting lineup. There are quite a number of very interesting issues.
Okay. Politics, I can see politics, I see the justice system is coming on the line, there's sports,
Yeah.
and then of course the state of the economy, which I want to actually begin with. The
Okay.
fuel scarcity
Yeah.
is hitting hard, especially on motorists and cyclists,
Yeah.
getting to work is becoming an issue.
It's
for
becoming very
commuters.
difficult. In fact, I've observed that in the past week, when I'm trying to come to work in the morning, there's this crazy jam. And then the jam is not because there are so many cars on the road. No,
Not necessarily.
the jam is as a result of long fuel queues you have all over the place. So I think that not that I think, but it's been very obvious that for a while now, fuel has been a very, very huge challenge.
Yeah, there's no argument that actually NNPC is the heartbeat of this nation.
Of
So when
course.
it's top, really everything comes to
Yeah.
an abrupt halt, and that is very unfortunate considering we are looking at trying to advance the nation's economy.
Yeah.
We have a target, and I'm wondering, with all of these, false starts, when are we actually going to get there?
The thing is, anytime that there's any fuel scarcity, my problem personally as a person is you find that so many other things are kind of dependent on this.
Yeah.
For example, once there's scarcity, so there's a hike in price, and then black marketers are all over the place.
Exploiting
And then,
the system.
Suddenly
And their
everything
fellow
becomes
brethren.
very expensive.
Okay.
Transport becomes expensive. Getting things done becomes expensive because, of course, power is not something we can really say we have. So most businesses rely on fuel.
Yeah.
And then once it goes high like that, every other thing becomes very expensive. And unfortunately, a lot of times, even when there's a reversal in the situation, these price differences never get reversed. They remain there. They cause this inflation, and I think it's something that should be resolved as quickly as possible.
As quickly as possible, the independent petroleum marketers are bringing to light some very shady activities of government in not settling for the last 2 quarters. I guess that was what is in the news.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there should be some concerted effort to mitigate this challenge. I remember some time ago we were talking about vested interest.
Yeah.
Sanusi in the TED Talk was talking about how vested interest was actually killing this country.
Nigeria,
And it actually goes to say that is actually some of the reasons we are experiencing what we have right now.
You know, talking about this whole vested interest thing, one of the headlines we have today is that Alison Madueke is saying that these refineries need to be privatized.
Okay.
You know, and then of course some bodies that are like connected to this whole situation have been against the idea because we feel that no, this is not good for the country, the nation should. But personally, as a person, I think that privatizing it will sort of bring more benefit to Nigerians. It may belong to a few people, but I think that there will be more competition in the market, and then thereby people will be more serious about delivery, giving quality service and making the product available. So
I think it also extends the reach. It makes people,
option.
It makes it more affordable in the long run. It may not be immediate.
Because it might actually make it more expensive. It might make the
in the
product more
beginning.
expensive.
But when competition comes in, just like we experienced in the telecom sector, please, our calls are cheaper now, don't you?
Yeah.
That was not what it used to be
Yeah.
in the early days.
Yeah.
But eventually, now we have to look to the future in determining the policies that will advance this nation.
That's true.
Sometimes it's difficult at the beginning, but eventually when things begin to gradually settle down, we'll
gets
actually
better.
begin to see that it gets better.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to cut you out. What's threatening for you in the news?
A number of things, you know, just after this one we just talked about, I think one of the things that really caught my attention again is the issue of the ex-British Foreign Secretary, you know, Straw, saying that opposition is necessary for Nigeria. I kind of completely agree with this because since 1999 that we have had democracy, we've only had one party, one ruling party. PDP has been in power since 1999.
Our nascent.
And
Can we
then-
call it our nascent democracy?
Yeah.
Is it still nascent?
Yeah, of course it is because
Okay.
it's still new and all of that. But I think that one important thing is why opposition is good is a democracy cannot be said to be very successful until there's transition, not just of power from one government to another, but there's a
Exactly.
transition from one party
To another, which we are yet to actually
without any
witness.
chaos, and we're yet to witness that. So I think that it's a very objective
I
opinion.
totally agree with your point of view.
Yeah.
I feel that if the tenets of democracy are actually going to be realized in Nigeria, that has to happen. And for that to happen, I think the stage is actually being set gradually.
Yeah.
I'm interested in saying who APC is going to field as the flag bearer for 2015.
Because whether we like it or not, we have a lot of political parties in Nigeria, but
Yes.
of course it's very obvious that APC is the strongest opposition
They are
there
gaining
is.
a lot of momentum.
You know,
as it
and then
is.
lately there has been a lot of rattling. You know, you have people flocking in
Defecting.
from PDP
Exactly.
into APC, and then some people are going back to APC. So I think that 2015 is going to be a very interesting year politically. You know, but I think again that it's important that we approach it with a lot of caution, be careful, and know that at the end of the day, we're one nation.
Well, Faith, it's actually quite interesting that you mentioned that, and I also, concede that our audience should take note to actually observe decorum because it's going to be a sensitive period, but we need to move together as a united Nigeria. We're celebrating the centenary year, 100 years being together. I know it has not been easy. But of course, who said it will ever be? But when we keep our differences aside and focus more on those things that join us together, I believe we'll move forward. Well, that is all we can take on this edition of Youth Weekly. I'll be part of the conversation and have your say. You can drop your comments on our Facebook page. We're talking about politics. We're talking about the coming general elections in 2015. Who would you actually want to see to field in any of these parties as the presidential candidate? Because that is actually a very sensitive position. We would like to know what you think. Drop your comments on our Facebook page, facebook.com/UTV Africa. We're also on Twitter, so you could follow us on our Twitter handle @UTV Africa. We'll be most happy to share your views with our timid audience. Well, that is all we can take on this edition of the program. So join us again same time next week. From our end here is bye-bye.